Welcome to Vegas. How is everyone? Let me hear you. Is it great to be here together again? Just think about this. 2 years ago, January 2020, we're all here. We heard about this thing going on in Wuhan, China. None of us really could predict anything that would happen after that. In fact, I remember a couple of my team members had just come back from China. They were at Connect. We were shaking hands, we were hugging, we were talking, had no idea. Then we go to last year, Connect 2021, a virtual show. I still remember Ken Hanulek, our worldwide marketing officer, Holly O'Rourke, our head of communications, telling me, Jeff, you have to videotape the keynote on your iPhone. I said, how am I going to do that? They said, we're going to send you these big bars, and you're going to put this big green drape on those bars behind you. And I said, what's that for? They said, well, we don't want to have any glare on the screen. Little did they know, the glare was the forehead of my receding hairline. The coolest thing they sent me, though, the best thing they sent me, quite frankly, was unbelievable. It was this tripod, so I could put my iPhone on it. It was about 12 to 15 feet, and it also doubled as a selfie stick. I was the coolest 60-year-old walking around with a 12-foot selfie stick, taking pictures of myself and showing my kids. It was the best. So look, we're blessed to be back here again. We couldn't be more thrilled. We want to be safe. Please remember, the Nevada Gaming Commission requires us, when we're not eating and drinking, to keep our masks on. Of course, the Nevada Gaming Commission knows nothing about printers. We're always eating and drinking. As a matter of fact, during the pandemic, I was thinking maybe I can get a few more dollars, and I was thinking of going on Shark Tank and putting a keg on each end of a printer and selling that to printers. But then I figured if I went on Shark Tank, Damon John, he'd want to license it, Kevin O'Leary would want a royalty, so I just gave up the idea. I see about 3 people writing that idea down. Please, don't copy me. So look, we're going to change this up this year. In past years, last year, the year before, my predecessors here, we'd stand up here and we'd pontificate for 40 to 45 minutes. I have to tell you, after the last 2 years, I don't want to do that. I want to have some fun. Hopefully we'll have some laughs. It'll be a little hard to tell if you're laughing behind those masks. So please, chuckle loud, would you? Some things you didn't know about me. This April 20th will be my 35th anniversary in this industry. Well, thank you. Those must be my people hoping I'm going to be leaving soon. 35 years in the industry, and I joined this company, Polychrome. Who ever heard of Polychrome? So, I came from Paramount Pictures, I came from General Electric / RCA, and then I joined this company, Polychrome. My friends would ask me, what is that? They thought it was a chrome bird, but it was much more. It was the start to everything. So then I started thinking about it. My first job ever was at Paramount Pictures. Here I am 40 years into my career. I'd like to say I'm on my back 9, but I don't think I have another 40 years. So maybe I'm on the back 16th, 17th, 18th hole of my career, and hopefully they're par 5s. But what I wanted to do, I've watched Johnny Carson growing up. I've watched Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel. They do their late night shows. It doesn't look that hard. So I figured, let's have some fun with it. Let's have Connect in that format. So here we go. Let's start. I'm going to get behind my desk. So look, some of you know that we made an announcement last week. And you might have questions, otherwise known as perhaps an elephant in the room. I don't know. This is Vegas. Who knows about an elephant in the room? Wow. Is that from eProductivity Software? That's pretty good. They're right on things. How are you? Good job. So to help us with some of the questions you may have, and we're not going to do it at this time, we're going to do it later in the session. I did want to introduce, because I'm very pleased for him, I'm very proud of him, the new CEO of eProductivity Software, Gabby Matzliach. Let's have a big hand. Hey, Gabby, we'll do that. Good idea. And an elbow.
Double one.
No chest bumps. So Gabby, this is, look, I know we're just going to have a little hello, you and I, early on. I wanted the crowd to see you. At the end of my session, you're going to be Seth Meyers, and you're going to have the After Night Late Show, okay? You're going to come out, Mark Owen, and you're going to have about 20 minutes. So after my segment, please do not leave. He's going to keep the audience going. So Gabby, you know what's interesting? This is the first time, you and I have worked together 2.5 years. I think it's the first time I ever said your last name, Matzliach.
Yeah, you know that the name has a meaning in my native tongue. So I'll skip the meaning, but when I was young...
It's clean, isn't it?
Sorry?
It's clean, right?
It means successful.
Okay. Good, okay.
But yeah, Matzliach is successful in Hebrew. But when I grew up I did my master and PhD degrees, I was young. I really wanted phonetically very punctual way to have my name pronounced by people. So I spell it the way it is, which is different than how my father did it, which is different than how his father did it. And I got the name that nobody can pronounce in America. So it's pretty embarrassing. But when I go to France, people actually pronounce it very well. Monsieur Matzliach, it's easy, but in America, I'm just Gabby.
See, I could pronounce it, because you don't know this, Gabby. I grew up as a young Jewish kid in Brooklyn in the Bronx. And when you grew up as a young Jewish kid in Brooklyn in the Bronx, you'd go to this place called the Catskills in upstate New York. If you don't know what it's about, go watch Dirty Dancing later on today. You'll know all about it. And you learn how to say things like Matzliach. But you know what? You have a very unique name, Gabby, which is why I never said your last name all these years.
Good.
You say Gabby, everybody knows who you are. It's kind of like Cher, Fabian, or Elvis. That's how I think of you.
Yeah, I'm really famous.
By the way, the elephant in the room, I have to say, was not a reference to any, you're in fantastic shape. Remember, elephants have fantastic memory, so please, I just want you to know it's not a reference.
I'll give another lesson in Hebrew. So in the US, they say, a bull in a china shop. In Hebrew, actually, they say an elephant in a china shop. So I'd rather be the elephant in the room than the elephant in the china shop.
There you go.
If you ask me.
And we're very glad to have you in the room. But in all seriousness, Gabby, this is your first time as a CEO, is that correct?
Yes.
That is, I couldn't be more pleased, feel more proud of you.
Thank you.
Really fantastic.
I'm very humble.
By the way, have you looked up the average tenure of first-time CEOs?
No.
Okay, don't do it. It's almost like the average tenure of first-year football coaches. Not very good.
I always look at statistics after the fact.
So look, Gabby, what I'd like to do, you no longer are on my team, unfortunately, so I have no say over anything you do. Not that I ever did, let's face it, right? I think we both know that. But as of yesterday, I know you didn't know about the 3 envelopes that first-time CEOs should all know about. True?
I did, but it's okay. Let's give everybody the lesson. It's an important lesson.
So look, your new owners...
By the way, I did meet some print owners yesterday that told me how hard it is to find envelopes these days in the market.
That's true. And paper. That's a good point. Good point. So Gabby, look, you're now owned by STG, Symphony Technology Group. Great software owners for you. I think it's going to be fantastic. Let's say the first quarter or 2 happens, and you don't exactly play a symphony. The numbers are not that good. It happens, right? You're starting a new company, everybody's stepping up. You open the first envelope, Gabby. I have to tell you, please, look at this and show it to the audience. Blame your predecessor.
But there's a little problem with this. I'm the predecessor. I don't need the ear to understand that. I mean, I blame myself every day.
Well, look, I was going to tell you to blame Mark Olin, but he's your chairman and he could fire you. So blame me. Then you go another couple of quarters, and again, things don't go so well. Noisy music, not a symphony. What do you do next? Envelope 2.
I'll show everybody so that they know.
Reorganize. Don't blame your great team, though.
We organize every week.
And then year-end comes, bonus time. You're hoping to get a nice bonus. Not very good results. Write up 3 new envelopes, Gabby.
I really hope that by then, there will be a shortage of envelope in the market.
Excellent.
The pandemic is behind us.
So look, Gabby's going to be back at the end of this segment. Please make sure you stay in your seats. He's going to take you all through e-productivity software, and then tomorrow he'll have a much longer segment. But Gabby, it was great having you here. Thank you. So look, a lot has happened in the last 2 years, and a lot of things have changed in our industry, the way we operate. If you look at the pandemic, you look at inflation, you look at employment issues, you look at supply chain issues. They've all impacted what we're trying to do in print and the analog to digital conversion that certainly EFI has focused on over the last 30 years. So instead of me going through it as we would in a traditional keynote, we brought out an industry expert, someone that has been in this industry for 30 years. Most of you know him well. Some of you have probably worked with. Please welcome the VP of IT Strategies, Marco Bohr. Marco, welcome to Vegas.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be live.
It's wonderful. It's great to be alive, or it's great to be live?
Both.
Both. Good. How's the family doing?
Family's great.
Fantastic.
Very lucky.
You know, Marco, you have a name like Gabby too. I think people in this industry say Marco, they know it's Bohr.
I thought they said polo.
Marco Polo. That's when we close our eyes and swim.
Right.
Well, look, so get rid of the Bohr. You're just Marco, okay?
Great.
But it is fantastic to have you. So, Marco, look, let's touch, Gabby was just talking about envelopes. You know, we thought when the vaccines came out, we were starting to manage through this pandemic. Still wasn't pleasant, but we were able to operate. People were able to get to work a little more safely than they were before. And then all of a sudden, supply chain issues started to hit. You know, how has this impacted the industry, and what do you think our customers can do?
Well, a few things. First of all, I think the whole COVID pandemic has exposed the underbelly of our supply chains, the weaknesses, and it's become very apparent. You know, we're short on paper, we're short on chips, and we're short on labor. And it's affected the print industry in many different ways, some negatively, but some very positively. So if you look at the negative trends, right, you can imagine in offices, nobody's photocopying things, printing things. But there's some really interesting bright spots that you probably wouldn't necessarily recognize. One of my favorite ones is book printing. You wouldn't have guessed 10 years ago, but printed books, trade books, have actually been growing for the last 5 years. And during the pandemic, there's only so much Netflix anybody wants to watch, and so book sales have gone up. But there's another knock-on effect, and that is, historically, many of our books were printed in the Far East, and they'd come over on the slow boat. Well, guess what? It doesn't work anymore. 50% of our books are now sold through Amazon, and we expect 1 to 2 day delivery, right? And so what's happened is this incredible surge of onshoring. And that's benefited, particularly our digital production print industry, tremendously. So that's a really positive spot. The thing that we expect is going to tip as we go forward are all of the other non-document-oriented segments. So I'm talking textiles, decor, packaging, all of the things that were dramatically impacted by the instability of our supply chain. And we need more, basically, flexibility. And we're also seeing a lot shorter run lengths on things. And so as these trends come together, you're going to see more onshoring and in the end, more digital printing. So I think it bodes really well for our industry.
Yeah. And Gabby talked about the envelopes. Yesterday I was with customers talking about paper shortages and trying to get that. Look, you know, we're only about a 4-hour drive to LA, and there are a lot of barges out there. You know any people out there you and I could take a quick ride? Get some paper for people?
Oh, good luck.
Okay, let's tackle the next issue. You know, the most important asset we have in any company are the people in the company, and we mean that very sincerely. We've all read about the Great Resignation. We've read about pay increases, how difficult it is to find qualified labor now. We see it everywhere we go. Don't people need to pay bills anymore and work?
Well, that's a big, big question. So
I used to work 2 jobs when I was younger.
I think most of us did, but yes. So first of all, the supply chain instability is our number one problem right now, right? That's in our face. We got to resolve that. The bigger problem is going to be labor. And some of you might have heard us talk about the fact that if you look at the demographics, since the 2008 economic recession, we had 500,000 fewer births. Those first babies that were born in 2008 start entering the workforce in 2026. We're going to have 500,000 fewer workers, which is about 15% of the workforce entering. And we're going to be competing, right, amongst all these other industries. So labor is an issue that is not going to go away. To address that, one of the things we need to do is we need to automate. And that's where we get into this other piece, and that is our industry has become the darling of private equity. And it's become the darling because we are highly fragmented, frankly, probably inefficient, and we've got still pretty good cash flow at the end of the day. And so the private equity companies are looking at this saying, so how do we make all of these companies more efficient? So it's not necessarily centralization, but they need more automation. So any job that can be automated, that's repetitive, consistent, that is going to be automated, and it's all going to be driven by software and ultimately our digital production printing.
Exactly. You know, I think the headline most people took away was Marco Bohr says have more children.
I think there's another show going on down the road that, never mind.
So Marco, one of the things, and it was wonderful having you up at our New Hampshire facility, and we had a number of our digital packaging customers in. You know, in my 35 years, and I said that this when we put out the press release on the sale of our software business, part of it was we wanted to be able to double down, not only in fiery, but certainly in industrial inkjet applications, which probably the greatest I've seen in my career. You are the expert in this. What are you seeing?
It's, you know, I tend to be a little bit exuberant in this, but it's basically...
Don't hold yourself back.
Look, we're at this point where I would call it a renaissance of new applications, and there's so many really cool ones. Like one of my favorite ones, and it ties back to the supply chain issue, is things like home renovations and new construction, right? And so we're all short on lumber, and you know, things are getting more expensive, right? They're twice what you probably thought it was going to cost. And guess what we're finding? It's new innovative technologies like EFI Cubic that are able to print on basically what, you know, Doug Edwards might call cheap and cheery lumber, so plywood, nice maple plywood, and you can simulate it to look like a piece of walnut or cherry or something much more expensive. And so there's ways where we can take, particularly because of all the software that we have, right? We can randomize the patterns, and this is going to take a lot of horsepower. But if you pull all of that together, you're going to see a lot of new applications that didn't exist before because we're so hungry, right, for product that we just can't get. So simulating things on the decor side is going to be incredibly powerful. So that's one. Textile printing, apparel. I just saw this morning some statistics from Morgan Stanley, and they claim that apparel purchases are up in November of 21 versus 20. Up 35%, way above COVID started. And of course, there's some re-inventorying, right, among the brands and the likes. But ultimately, I think there's a hunger, right, for us to go back to living our normal lives. And I think digital printing is going to help a lot in those applications. So
this is good. You gave me another note. My wife's going through a renovation. I should tell her cheap and cheery. Is that how you put it? Good.
Yes.
Cheap and cheery. I like that. So you spoke about textiles, and speaking of my lovely bride, one thing she will never confuse me with is fast fashion. As a matter of fact, I emulate my father, may he rest in peace, who would buy something, leave it in the closet, and figure it would come back in 15 years in style. I still have those fat ties, by the way.
It is the ultimate form of sustainability.
Exactly. Fantastic. So it's no longer about 4 seasons, it's 16 seasons, it's... You know, what do we see in a textile, which is really, quite frankly, great for our EFI Reggiani business?
So textiles, frankly, is a mess. And it was a mess way before COVID, right? The number of bankruptcies that happened, you know, big famous brands, J. Crew, Brooks Brothers, and the likes, that happened way before COVID. And it happened because the business model of the apparel, the fashion industry, in my opinion, is broken. And it's broken because they never got the timing right between the design versus putting it on a rack versus having to discount it and then having to waste about 30%. And so the whole goal now is all of those immovable tenants, right? And I'll give you an example. H&M, big fashion brand, Swedish company. They have 750 designers from all over the world, Japan, Italy, France, all at the headquarters in Stockholm, because they wanted that camaraderie to do the design, right? And they said, you have to be here. And those discussions would take weeks and months, right, until they agreed on something. Well, guess what? During COVID, everybody went home. And now they're working remotely. And because they're working remotely, frankly, they've gotten a little more efficient. And so now the design cycle from the idea to getting the product into sampling and into the store has, you know, reduced dramatically. That's where the cost savings come from. The other big cost saving is many of the converters are now drop shipping directly to the individual store rather than a centralized distribution center. So all of these things are coming together to shorten the supply chain and make product more relevant so that it doesn't have to be discounted. So the next question is, well, what does this all mean for digital printing, right? So digital printing is a piece of reducing that supply chain, but it's just one piece. And there's less waste, right? Less water usage and the like. So all of these things are good. But I think what you're going to find in the next sort of 6 to 18 months, where digital printing is going to really shine is in probably higher value apparel, where they can create what some people call engineered goods. So if you are a frequent visitor of Palm Beach, Florida, you're no doubt familiar with a brand called Lilly Pulitzer, right? My grandmother used to wear Lilly Pulitzer.
Really?
They're still alive, and they're still in business. And one of the things they figured out
I think they're coming back, by the way. I've seen a number of people wearing them.
well, guess what they're doing? They're using digital printing to create patterns that they couldn't create any other way. And those are those engineered prints, and they do very limited run lengths of them so that nobody who goes to the next charity ball has the same dress as the next person. And they charge a very nice premium for that. That's where digital printing is
And
really,
vibrant colors, too. The colors are just amazing.
yeah, they pop.
I mean, I know nothing about fashion. I could look and say, that's Lilly Pulitzer.
I'm not so sure if you'd look good in a Lilly Pulitzer dress, Jeff, but
I don't know. You know what amazed me, though, speaking more about textile, before the pandemic, I was in Italy, and I went to one of the foremost houses that does all of scarves. I mean, you talk about Louis Vuitton, you talk about Hermes, and I felt like a novice because I walked in and I started picking up the different fabrics, putting against my face, and I could tell the owner looked at me and said, "What are you doing?" He said in Italian, so I wouldn't understand, but my person translated for me. And I said, I wanted to see the difference in the fabric between Hermes, Louis Vuitton. He goes, it's the design.
Yep.
But then what blew me away, to your point, everything was automated. When I saw how the scarves were hand sewn, that is not automated. Hundreds of people just literally doing it. Will that ever get automated, do you think? They can't
very
call it hand sewn.
slowly, very slowly. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're really honest about it, if it's automated, the quality is going to be far more consistent and better.
Right.
But there's a certain, I don't know, just charm to having something handmade. I don't know if you think about like a bow tie. When you tie your own bow tie, it's never perfect.
You can
But
do
that's
it? You
part
can
of
tie
the
your own
charm.
bow tie?
Always.
I wish we had one. We could bring one out for you to do it. It's like a Rubik's Cube to me.
Right.
So let's go to one that's near and dear to everybody's heart. You've kind of talked about the perfect storm. We've got inflation, which is the highest it's been in 40 years, supply chain issues, labor shortage. It's the perfect storm. What can we do from an efficiency standpoint? What could our customers do? How do we counteract some of this?
Well, let me start with a positive view on it first. All of us are facing rising costs. And this is the first time in my 30 years in this business where we are able to see print providers pass on price increases in a way that we've never seen before. Because we all know things cost more. We can't get everybody's paying, rack rates or list price or whatever you want to call it. And so we are passing on costs for the first time in many, many years. Most of the print providers make profit as a % of their total revenue. And so as the total cost goes up, their profits go up. So many of them probably won't tell you, but they're probably somewhat embarrassed that they're having among their most profitable years ever.
Thank you for letting me know that. Sales team, did you hear that?
Well, because, they've cut their own costs so much, and they're able to pass on these price increases. So that's point one. Point two, as we go forward in this business, I'm sad to say there's still a lot of print, particularly conventional print, that probably shouldn't be printed. Phone books are long gone, but there's lots of other things, prospectuses. Who the heck reads a printed prospectus, right? Do they really need to be printed? If you have that as a business, yes, of course you want that to be printed, but the reality is it doesn't add a lot of value. And so what we're finding now is those print providers are able to sit down with their customers and now get beyond the procurement office, right? Because we're no longer negotiating for fractions of a penny. I just want my print, right? I need it. It's incredibly important to me. You're able to sit down and have these conversations about what you can do relating to the content and the imagery to get a better return on investment. And so the goalpost is shifting. We are becoming true partners with our customers now, no longer subservient to the procurement office. Right. So it's actually a really good time.
But Marco, the printing industry has made my life. It's helped my family. So it's really interesting. Whenever they say, my financial firm, do you want a printed copy? I always say yes.
Of course.
It comes to the house, big books, and my wife said, I thought we went paperless. What happened? Don't tell her. Help the printing industry.
But by the way, I'll tell you one little
Please.
anecdote, and that is, one of the other rapidly growing areas is direct mail.
Yes.
And you look at them and say, who the heck wants printed direct mail? And there's one really simple answer to it. During the pandemic, all of the big brands started heavily, getting engaged with social media, TikTok, Instagram, and the likes. And what they found is that consumers started to get turned off because they were unsure if it was legitimate or if it was clickbait. And so the only way for many of these big guys to now reach you as consumers is to send you a direct mail piece with a QR code so that you use that as an on-ramp with your smartphone to get to a legitimate site. And so here's the interesting piece,
That's a
right?
great
So one of the bigger firms out there who was looking to do about 50 million pieces of direct mail this year was told by their paper supplier that they can only get 80% of the volume that they would like to send out. They're capacity constrained. And so now the conversation is, well, help me, Mr. Print Provider, to make sure that of the 80% that I'm going to send out, that it's more relevant than it would have been.
Right.
And so it's a really good opportunity.
See, my dad is a little old, but my understanding was response rates on printed documents has always been higher than digital. Is that an inaccurate premise?
Statistically, on the whole, yes. But, these big macro things, frankly, probably don't matter as much as they used to.
Right.
You got to get into the sub-application to really know.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right, so look, we're here, 600 strong, which is not bad when you consider 2 years ago we were 800 strong. So, big shout out to all of you. Woo! Fantastic. Fantastic. You're on the board of a number of these print institutions. We're starting to see shows like this come back. We're seeing sporting events. We're seeing playoff games with 60, 80, 100,000 people at college stadiums who are not masked, which is amazing. Are trade shows and events finally coming back?
So you hit upon it earlier, and that was, when we're on Zoom, we miss 3 out of our 5 senses. We can't touch things, we can't smell things, we can't taste things. And so it is something that really affects us, and we're human beings, right? We crave social interactions. So I do think these events are very important, and I think what you'll find is that many of the smaller, sort of marginal events will probably disappear. And what will be left is very big events like Printing United Alliance, Connect, Canon Think, etc. And then you're going to see a lot more smaller, higher value events like open houses. So it's going to bifurcate. But big events are important because it's the only place where you can really get a sense of where all of these applications are going. You pick up new ideas, innovation. The word that everybody talks about a lot these days is convergence. Right. And if I look at many of these print providers out there, they may be in one application segment today, but they're all looking over their shoulder saying, what's the next market I can get into for some more stability, for some incremental revenue growth? And in a way, it's sort of ironic because we're coming back to that original term of general commercial printers.
Exactly.
And so it's come full circle.
It was really interesting when you said the bigger shows like Printing United will still be here. I saw Ford Bowers through his masked smile. It was really good. He was very happy with you. Did he pay you to say that?
Listen, it's really important. I mean, this is our industry, and we're all here because we like this industry. It pays our living. So these things are very important.
I agree with you. And you can't see it as well today, but you just look at these graphics, in the light. I mean, the print quality is just unbelievable. I'll tell you, I hear this company, EFI, is just amazing.
Guess what? These large format graphics, they're actually coming back much faster than we'd expected. So
Bless you, my son. Thank you.
Well, listen, I can be very optimistic here, but if you get me one-on-one, right, and I say to you, oh my God,
No,
Jeff,
but I was half joking. Our display graphics business is actually doing very well. It's credible, and when we come out, we'll see some of our super high-speed products. It's going to be phenomenal, and we're going to talk about that in a little while. Building materials is an interesting one. We obviously have a building materials business that's out of Spain. It was interesting that because the virus started in China, and 50% of that market is in China, we really felt it, I'll call it, in the first quarter of 2020. But then, it was the only business we had in 2020 in the heat of the pandemic that did better in 2019, because it rebounded very quickly. And you saw our luxury vinyl tile business, wood business, et cetera, ceramics doing very well. What can print service providers do from building material standpoint?
So there's a couple things moving around all at the same time, right? So first of all, while the pandemic has been absolutely horrific for people, there's also a subgroup for whom it's done very well. And so there's more discretionary income, particularly at the higher end, right? So everybody wants to renovate, and where do we get the materials? And so we basically need more flexibility. And so we talked about the kitchen cabinets, right? And trying to simulate. What will happen is, in my opinion, is the big lumber companies, they're not necessarily the ones who are going to get into the printing business, right? But what will happen is the print providers, there'll be a few here and there, probably wide format service providers, that will figure out that on those flatbeds, UV flatbeds, they can do this application. And they're going to become subcontractors to these big building suppliers. And you're going to see a whole new incremental sort of business arise that runs almost in parallel. If you step back 20 some odd years ago now, and I remember this vividly when wide format graphics printing first originated with LaserMaster, right, and the rips and all that, the screen printers looked at this and said, inkjet's a toy, it's too slow, it's way too expensive, nobody's ever going to buy it. And so all of a sudden, fast forward, and inkjet, wide format graphics, became a hugely valuable market. Yeah, the volumes weren't very high compared to screen printing, but at the same time, it became a completely parallel business. And the screen printers would say, oh, it didn't affect us, our screen printing business is great. But what they missed is this whole other tranche of business, right, that grew out of nowhere. And I think that's what you're going to find in the building material industry. There's also some segments that you're very familiar with, like ceramic tile. Today, 90% of ceramic tile lines have inkjet technology. Right. For the simple reason that, you can do much shorter runs, you can try to address the fashion issues. And oh, by the way, in that particular application, inkjet's non-contact. So rather than pad printing where you're putting down an image on a tile that hasn't been fired yet, there's a lot of breakage. And so that completely, got that industry to flip. So there's so many new opportunities there. You're just at the very, very beginnings of that.
Fantastic. Yeah. By the way, for the studio audience, these wind bottles, they're actually water, please. They're not Coors Light. Might look like it, but it's not, I promise you. So, Marco, here's one. Sustainability, ESG. You can't help but pick up the paper, on the internet, just read about it. And it's interesting. I remember back in the mid-'90s, for those who remember lithographic film, and we would talk about processing the water that would process the lithographic film. What could we do to cleanse it? And it worked for a while until printers hit a bump, and then they didn't want to pay the extra money. Is it going to stick this time? And I hope it does.
So sustainability, in my opinion, is hugely complicated. So we all need to do the right things, right? For our kids, our grandkids, and so absolutely we need to be better. The reality is that, in my opinion, it won't really change until financially it starts making a difference. And so the biggest thing we can do to become more sustainable is to reduce waste. In the print industry, sadly, it's good for print providers because they print, whether it gets used or not, but a lot of our print is wasted. And so if we can be more on target with printing things that are going to get utilized right away, we're going to be that much better off. And so that fits digital printing to a T, right? So very short run lengths, and so that's probably the biggest impact we can have to be sustainable. Other pieces are more complicated. For example, we have these huge discussions about, well, what about the substrate, right? Shouldn't we all be using recycled paper? And you start peeling back the layer of the onion and say, okay, well, how do we get to recycled paper? Somebody's got to, A, collect it, B, transport it to a recycling plant. They've got to bleach the heck out of it in order to make it reusable for office paper. And C, then it needs to be transported back. At the end of the day, I'm pretty certain for recycled office paper, it's probably more sustainable to use virgin paper. Right. But, you could have these debates all day long. The real key, however, is that at the end of the day, we all have to do our little piece to be better. And if I look at EFI, for example, one of the big technologies that EFI had a breakthrough on early on was LED curing of UV inks. LED curing uses a fraction of the energy, but there's a hidden sort of benefit that nobody really sees until you start measuring it very carefully, and that is, today, when you use other drying technologies, it tends to generate a lot of heat. And when you generate heat, often what will happen is you have to have more cooling. And so inadvertently, it may actually be that it's your energy cost to cool the plant that's actually more impactful than the actual drying technology. So, we all need to get much smarter about measuring how you watch what is sustainable, not sustainable. And I think, doing all these little bits and pieces, like you're moving into pigmented aqueous inks for textiles. That's another piece.
Waterless inks.
Right? So we're blocking and tackling, but at the end of the day, it all matters, and it's going to add up.
Yeah. You made a great point when you came to New Hampshire, and I'll give you the example. I had an Amazon delivery the other day, 2 vitamin bottles, and it came in this big box with all the filler. You just think about the waste there.
Yeah. It's going to change. It has to.
Great. I hope so. Something that I think are going to change all of our businesses. This retail, e-tail, reinventing ourselves. Do we need to become more like marketing companies?
Wow. Okay. Okay, everybody, we're all moving to buying stuff online, but the reality is, statistically, less than 15% of things that are bought online. So it's got a ways to go, and it's growing like crazy, and it's all good. There's a couple of things happening within that, however. First of all, the big consumer goods companies, think Nestle, Procter & Gamble, and the likes, they're being perceived more and more, particularly by millennials and Gen Z, as the evil company, right? None of us, if you're that age, want to be buying Fruit Loops when you can buy locally sourced and manufactured granola. And so what's happening is that the big brands are actually often behind the little startup brands because they've got all these investment groups, and the world is getting more and more fragmented. So the number of brands is actually exploding as we go forward, and it's being enabled also by online sales. As that happens, we have to differentiate ourselves somehow. And one of the big things you can do to differentiate is in packaging. And so, there's a few examples I'll mention. One, of course, is subscription boxes. My wife, God bless her, loves these subscription boxes, right, that come with clothing. But at the end of the day, she also loved going into the store and having that experience. And so the big thing now that we're starting to see is basically trying to figure out how to step up the unboxing experience. Right. So if any of you bought, these advent calendars this year, my wife bought Bon Maman jellies or something. And when that box came, it looked brown on the outside, but when you opened it up, my God, was that thing colorful and interesting. And
it was like Lily Pulitzer.
There you go. Oh, God. So that's why we're still working, right? But anyway, the whole point is that, the experience is starting to matter. And, I know we don't have enough time here, but I'll give you one quick anecdote of a converter because I just, it was so interesting. So we interviewed some of your Nozomi customers. And one of the most interesting conversations I had was with a converter who was trying to convince one of their customers to pay extra money to get that differentiated color box right on the inside. And that brand said, I am not paying you effectively, 5 to 10x for that box. Just give me the brown box. And the Nozomi print provider basically said, look, I'm going to print it for you at cost, and I want you to come back to me at the end of the month and tell me if that helped lift your sales. And so a month goes by, the customer comes back, and he goes, I am really, really angry with you. He used a few other choice words, but he basically said, look, I'm not liking you. And the guy goes, what did I do? He goes, I'm going to be paying you 3 to 4 times more from here on out to get those beautiful boxes because it raised my sales. In his case, it was something like 20%.
Exactly.
And so, it's a grassroots effort. It's blocking and tackling again. But at the end of the day, all of the things that we are enabling through our digital production technology, our software, it's changing the world. And these little startups are going to become immensely powerful, in part because, again, the business models have changed so much. There is no more big advertising budgets.
Sure.
The advertising budget is TikTok. By the way, I heard another thing today.
And that was done on a Nozomi. Let's not lose track of the Nozomi, right? Okay, thank you. Okay.
Yes. Anyway, I'll finish with this last comment, and that was apparently if you're marketing on social media, Facebook is for great-grandmothers, Instagram is for grandmothers and grandfathers, and TikTok is for young people. So if
Very
you're
good.
marketing, that's
Marco, you have been as insightful as ever. We can't thank you enough. You lived up to your reputation. You did not bore us. So going forward, you are just Marco. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Jeff.
Appreciate it very much.
very
Great
much.
job. Marco Bohr.
Thank you.
Marco Bohr. Thank you, everyone. So now we're going to go to the prognostication section. You know, EFI, as I said, has always been known for the analog to digital conversion. And we have some phenomenal new technologies, products coming out in 2022. So to assist me in this, I'm going to be bringing out our Chief Technology Officer, Dr. Doug Edwards, and our worldwide Head of Marketing, Ken Hanulek. Big hand.
Yep. Nice to see you in person.
Good to see you. While you're here, I'll just be back in 1 second.
Where's he going, Ken?
Where'd Jeff go?
I don't know. What's he doing? Are you in the chair now?
I don't know what's going on.
Oh, wait a second. I'm getting something from the producers. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special guest that just arrived. Former Master of Ceremonies, the all-knowing, all-seeing from the House of Pies. I'd like to welcome to the stage, please welcome, Karnak Jeff the Magnificent. Whoa, whoa. Welcome, Karnak. Jeff, over here, welcome, welcome.
That was
Thank you.
quite a trip from a mystical place that only I know where it is.
Thank you for making the journey. Where were you?
Ken, Karnak to Jeff knows everything, and if I tell you, the future says you may not be here.
Oh. Okay, on that note, don't tell me. Karnak to Jeff, we'd like to put your magnificence to the test. I have a few envelopes here.
I haven't had this much on my head since I was a teenager.
We'd like you to read the questions from the envelopes without opening the envelope. Because you're the almighty, all-knowing, magnificent, we'd like you to tell us what's inside the envelope. So with that,
Karnak knows everything, Ken. Karnak to Jeff.
I'd like to give you the first envelope.
Okay.
I hope this works.
This is easy. This must be Jeopardy for 100. Ford Bowers, Mark Subers, Frank Tuckmantle, excuse me. Sorry, Frank. Three very unhappy people if Printing United does not happen this year.
Well,
Do you have anything harder?
you did not disappoint, so I'd like to give you, I'm quite confident, envelope number 2, there's no way you can get this one.
You do not know Karnak to Jeff. Not only is it easy, it is fun. The Great Resignation. What Doug Edwards and Ken Hanulek will do if the new products are not introduced on time.
Oh my God.
Hey,
Oh my God.
that doesn't sound good. Envelope number 3, this one, I think it may be a softball for you. You may get it.
Really? Print industry boomerang. Print industry boomerang. Mark Olin, if you throw him, he always comes back.
All right, and I know we previously agreed, Karnak, the Jeff, to only do 3 envelopes, but Doug and I thought it important that we do a 4th bonus round.
Can I keep this?
You may.
One of my favorite things. Unfrightened, laughing baseballs. Unfrightened, laughing baseballs. Those thrown by Mariano Rivera because no one will ever touch them.
Oh my God, dude. Certainly. Karnak to Jeff, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Did it mess up my hair?
You look great.
Okay. Is the cape off? Good. Okay. Can I have this back, Ken? Little levity. Thank you. So let's get into 2022 for EFI. Thank you. So look, as I've said many times, and I mean this sincerely, in my 35 years, I have never seen an opportunity like I see, with certainly what Toby wants to do with Fiery, and I know what Gabby's going to do with e-productivity software. But I will tell you, with what we see in the industrial markets and industrial inkjet, and the analog to digital conversion, and everything Marco talked about, I have never been more excited. And when I think about the 4 segments we have of display graphics, building materials, textile, and packaging, couldn't be more excited. Doug, Ken, what are you guys seeing, and where should our customers be?
Well, Jeff, look, this company has a tradition and a history of being able to leverage technology. I mean, a really great example is, what was done in Single Pass, where they took, a ceramic printer and leveraged it into textiles, leveraged it into packaging, into display graphics, actually more recently into wood decoration, into metal decoration. So, amazing technology in terms of leverage. We'll introduce, I think, actually last year we introduced 9 new printers. So we're continuing to leverage, and there's no way, you could do that if you weren't able to do it. And it's not just at the printer level, it's also at the subsystem level. So, whether it's electronics or whether it's transport systems or ink delivery systems, inspection systems, we leverage those across our entire platform. So I wonder, Ken, if you could give us a few examples, how we've done that, certainly in the last year.
Yeah, I mean, last year was an amazing year in the display graphics world. Certainly, we leveraged a lot of the thought leadership from the roll-to-roll technology, both on the VTech side and the team in Israel, and we launched the new Q-Series printer, both a 3-meter version and a 5-meter version. Really, arguably the fastest roll-to-roll print engine in the market, not only in terms of raw print speed, but in terms of productivity and finishing options, really helping to address that labor concern that people have by putting as much automation into that platform as possible. On the textile side, we launched the world's fastest shuttle-based printer just recently, the Hyper. I mean, same, just doing amazing things with phenomenal quality at the absolute lowest running cost. And then you mentioned packaging. Packaging is really the 10-ton gorilla that everyone's really looking to deliver the promise that we've been all about for the past 30 years, and that's the analog to digital conversion of print. And this is going to be a big year for EFI. We're going to leverage the success we've had over the past 5 years with the Nozomi platform and bring several new printers to market. And I've been asked not to give any more details about that.
Excellent.
Actually, we also do that. We do that across our software platform as well. We do that across our ink platform. We're always sort of leveraging technologies. If you look at what we do on the Fiery side, obviously we leverage the DFE, also Fiery IQ, and spending a lot of time developing remote diagnostics and a remote diagnostics platform through a common API across our entire platform. And on the ink side, I mean, we have a very strong position in UV ink. We love that because it's agnostic. You can print on anything. But more and more, we're starting to leverage the water-based ink technology that we have in our textile business into packaging, for example.
Good. Thank you, Doug. Remember, we have commercial sponsors that we're going to have to take a break soon, so okay?
Okay.
So Marco talked about convergence, and we're certainly seeing it, as you just mentioned, Doug, with our single-pass technology. We're leveraging it across our 4 inkjet platforms. We're certainly seeing it every day. When Nozomi came out, I don't think anybody really envisioned that we'd leverage it with display graphics, which we are. So what are we seeing with the convergence?
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing it across the board, right? I mean, I think across display graphics and packaging is a fairly obvious one. But also, across display graphics and textiles, I mean, you can see it by some of the soft signage around here. And we see it a lot, particularly across, various building material applications. And we love that because it enables us to pivot into new opportunities and new application spaces, and at the same time enables our customers, to be able to do the same. And in terms of consolidation, obviously, that's driving a lot of our future development because we're seeing, customers looking to consolidate volume onto fewer printers. So that requires us to get to the higher speeds. And we'll do that with our XT product, shuttle-based product that we'll launch this year.
And we're leveraging that technology not just into display graphics, but also into packaging with our M-Core product. So yeah, a number of examples. Ken mentioned Hyper, fastest scanning textile machine in the world. It's about twice as fast as anything in our current portfolio. And obviously single pass, single pass being significantly higher speed. And we're, across the board, be it the Nozomi platform, be it the Bold platform in textiles, we're developing and continue to develop that technology.
And just in terms of consolidation, we see many customers that are turning off 3 and 4 printers and replacing it with one real workhorse, whether that's a single pass technology or a shuttle-based platform. But there's certainly consolidation that's happening, and as Marco said, the big will continue to get bigger.
And to that point, you talked about the growth in digital packaging that we're certainly seeing now. We say it modestly, but I think we've collected the greatest depth of assets in industrial inkjet today. When you think about our printers, you think about ink, and that's not a commercial, but when you say that textile and digital packaging is probably less than 5% digital today, the opportunity is just tremendous, and we're leveraging it with shuttle and we're leveraging it with single pass. Take us through and take our audience through where we're going.
Yeah, I think we're at a tipping point, particularly in corrugated packaging. Single pass is able to compete from a cost and productivity standpoint, a TCO standpoint. And again, it's not much of a surprise because a lot of analog technologies that we're competing with are single pass. So, we've proved, I think, we can match the quality. We're now starting and able to match the speed and throughput. What we've got to do now, because we're up against, 100 years of development in analog, is continue to improve the reliability and the uptime performance. And I think we're starting to do that with the Nozomi platform. And, we've learned a lot over the last few years. And we've been upgrading and improving that, in the field with the C18000 Plus platform. When you look at our next generation, and we will introduce a next generation Nozomi this coming year, some of the features that we've put into that from our learning, it's going to have, for example, 50% fewer parts. It's going to have a reduced footprint. It's about 10 feet shorter. We're going to have a single unit transport, which enables us to sort of reduce vibrations and enables us to run faster. So it'll go from 75 up to 100 meters a minute, maybe even faster than that. We've got automatic belt cleaning. We've got superior color-to-color accuracy because the distance between colors is shorter. So look, the next generation will spurn, not just in packaging, will spurn probably 5 or 6 additional new printers from that existing platform.
But I think it's important to note that the new platform will be incremental to the amazing product portfolio that we have today, as Jeff mentioned, in terms of shuttle and single pass. We'll just be adding more and more product to address different adjacent markets and verticals along the road.
Right.
By the way, I just noticed, are those socks you're both wearing from Lilly Pulitzer? They're very colorful.
Printed by Reggiani, Jeff.
There you go. So look, one of the things I always tell the team, we're fortunate that over our 30-year history, we're the leader in firing, and we say that with great modesty and humility, and we keep trying to raise the bar. eProductivity Software is the leader in their business. We're the leader in inkjet. But there are places we're not the leader. We're not the leader in Eastern Europe. We're not the leader in Asia from a geographic standpoint, and we're not in South America. What are the things that we're going to start doing there?
Yeah, I think, when we think about expansion, we think of not only in terms of geographic coverage, but also in terms of application growth and different adjacencies. So, on the geographic expansion, 50% of our business today comes through the distribution channel. We love all of our partners. We'll continue to add new partners so that we have the maximum coverage to address and tell the world all the goodness about our products and technology. And then in terms of new markets, we're going to leverage all the wonderful technology items that Doug spoke about. We're going to look at different adjacent verticals. And, as we'll hear from Scott tomorrow, but one of the favorite lines he always uses, Ken, we're in this crisis of opportunity. And, it's really paramount that we take the tools, technology, and these pillars of innovation, I like to call it, and pick those adjacent markets we're going to go after really, really carefully so that we're working on the things that matter.
So you mentioned Scott. You know, marketing people always say nice things about their boss. Huh? That's good, Ken.
Jeff, I have 6 bosses.
That's true. And the most important one at home.
Right.
So with that, let's thank Ken. Doug, thank you very much. Appreciate it. So look, I think we have a phenomenal week planned for you ahead, and we're really excited about it and looking forward to it. You're going to see at 3:45 today my good friend Kevin Warren. Kevin is UPS's Executive Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer. He's been there for 4 years. He also spent 35 years at Xerox. He's an expert in print, digital, data analytics, and I think you're really going to enjoy the conversation with him. We are especially pleased to have Mariano Rivera with us. A special shout out to Larry Weiss from Atlantic Tomorrow's office, who was very instrumental in having Mariano here. Most of you probably know Mariano is a Hall of Famer, 652 saves, probably the best, certainly the best relief pitcher in the history of baseball, and maybe the best pitcher ever in the history of baseball. Also a winner of a recipient of a Presidential Medal of Freedom, and he is doing so much in terms of helping the youth come into the graphic arts industry, which is something we all need. By the way, that little guy you see over there on the right with Mariano is my son Michael. Not today. Michael is 28 years old today, but that was his 5th grade graduation, and he happened to go to the same school as Mariano Rivera Jr., and Mariano was at the 5th grade graduation and took a picture with Michael, and it's a picture we always love having, so I'm going to show it to Mariano again when I see him. The other thing we are especially pleased about is we are partnering with the Mariano Rivera Foundation, and we've entered into an agreement to support a substantial printing technology program for underserved minority youth. It's providing financial and technical training support to the Mariano Rivera Foundation as it further expands its efforts to provide youth with a path into solid careers. In fact, the Foundation's new print education and mentorship offerings focus on those skills needed to prepare young people for careers in the multifunction printer, service technician, design, and print production fields. We are just so pleased about that, and we're also very grateful to our co-sponsors who are helping us to support this project as well, including NAPCO Media, Printing United, What They Think, and Atlantic Tomorrow's office. So I was going to say, please join us tomorrow to hear from Mariano Rivera, but I think when 5 o'clock comes, you're going to be lined up at the door, and it's going to be like a pre-pandemic when Walmart was opening on Black Friday for everybody trying to get in to hear him. So really looking forward to that. We're also going to have for you the normal state of the products. Gabby is going, in addition to Gabby speaking with Mark today, at the end of this session, Gabby's going to go through a much more in-depth presentation for e-productivity software. Toby Weiss, our COO of Fiery, is going to go through his business, and Scott Schinlever is going to go through all the inkjet business. On Thursday, Frank Malozzi, our Chief Revenue Officer, is going to have an industry panel to discuss trends in the industry, and we're really looking forward to that, as well as specific applications. And then certainly, please, I really want to thank all the partners and sponsors that we have out here today. They truly help to make this event possible for everyone here and to keep it relatively cost-effective. I implore you, I encourage you, please take a moment to speak with them. They're all set up behind us. They're really fantastic, great companies, great people, and I think they can all help your businesses, so please take the time. So I really want to thank you so much on behalf of everyone at EFI. I look forward to a great Connect 22. And Karnak the Jeff also predicts that you're all going to have great 2022s. So with that, I'd like to turn over to our good friends at eProductivity Software. Let's bring Gabby back out, and I will exit.